onegaishimasu. I'm here today to give you a short lesson in some of the bow basics as well as the first bow kata. We'll just go over them briefly, and I'm only going to do a few repetitions to show you. Obviously, you can stop and start the video as you need to do as many repetitions as you can. First thing, a word about bow. Hopefully you were able to bring your bow home from the dojo. If you weren't able to, you can certainly improvise. I have done bow workouts with broom handles and even banisters that were now mounted to the wall. So if you're truly anxious to get a little bit of practice in, you can be creative, even if the stick you're working with isn't quite to the specifications of your bow. That said, let's go over the first basic, which is just the bow flipping. So I'm just going to try to back up so you can see the entire bow. The way that we want to approach this is to divide the bow in thirds with our hands, so that there's about a third here, a third between our hands, and a third on this end. One palm is up, one palm is down. Feet are about shoulder width. And you're just going to slide your hands past each other. You're going to be holding the bow very loosely. This is actually quite difficult to do in slow motion because it does require a little bit of speed in order to actually work. You want to make sure that you have this landing about parallel to the floor each time, and of course connect koshi to it when you can, like so. One of the easy shortcuts that a lot of people make when they're starting out is, because they're trying to be fast with this, is they sort of have one hand stationed and the other hand kind of flips back and forth like this. You want to really hold yourself to account to make sure that both hands stay on the bow the whole time and that one hand isn't coming off while the other stays on. So just making sure that both hands, and this is sort of an open palm slide past each other, like so. You can never do enough of these. These are a wonderful way to get really familiar with your bow and really familiar with the sort of level of looseness and simultaneous control that you need in order to work the bow well. If you get bored of doing them this way, try doing some perpendicular to your hip on this side, and then you can flip them over on this side. And if you want another challenge also, you can try to play with the proportions of the way that you're dividing the bow up. You could do 25, 25, 50, which is quite similar to the hold that you'll eventually use when you're doing strikes, for example, and pass the bow back and forth in your hands like so. Good. So like I said, you can never do enough of those. They're always a great thing to work on. Another good exercise, which will build up your forearm strength, is to just hold the bow in the same position and rotate, just using your wrist and your forearms, the bow forward, and then reverse direction, and go backwards. Then you're going to flip and do the same thing with the other hand, palm up, palm down, so the positions of your hands reversed, and put it back. And like I said, this builds up forearm strength, which is really crucial to make sure that you have a good control over the bow as well. Another great exercise to build up forearm strength is to grip the bow pretty low down. You may need to start with it gripped a little bit higher up, but pretty low down. And what you're going to do is just going to use the wrist. So it's not like a curl kind of motion. It's really just this, to drop the bow down and bring it back up. Drop the bow down and make sure it doesn't actually thunk on the floor, and bring it back up. Do the same thing with your other hand. If you're very right or left dominant, you may find that one hand is a little bit stronger than the other, and just be aware of that as you practice. And again, make sure that the motion is here, not here, and that's going to build up forearm strength as well. Great. So those three are very basic exercises that you can always do in the absence of sort of inspiration or even having memorized anything much else. The other thing that we want to do now, and this is sort of getting into the next level exercises, is the strike. So we're just going to do this one in walking stance, like so. And now the thing with the strike is, as you can see, I'm flipping the bow, and then I'm going to strike. So, and to be accurate, it's a step, flip, then strike, step, flip, then strike. Just as with any technique that we do, you want to make sure that the foot lands before the technique, the strike is happening, just to give yourself a firm base to work off. So, step, flip, and strike. And there are actually sort of two components to the strike, and I'm just going to face this way for a minute. So the first part of the strike is sort of a motion like this, right? You're bringing your arms down. The other part is that this hand right here is kind of functioning as a fulcrum. So even as you're doing this, you're also doing this, so that when you land the strike, you've got the power of this happening as this arm is kind of pushing forward. So you're kind of using two processes at once to land extra power to your strike. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you connect it to your core so that you get lots of kime and koshi out of it as well. Like so. And again, just remember, step, flip, and then the strike is going to give you the stable base that's going to allow you to do this with the most possible power. Definitely do tons of those going back and forth in your smaller space. You may only be able to do a couple before you have to mawate. And just remember that the mawate is stepping across with the front foot and a flip to get you set up to go in the other direction. So step across and then flip to get across. Good. So then now we want to do one other final basic. This one we're going to be in Zenkutsu, and for purposes of this, you can either mirror me or do the same side. I've got my right foot forward, left foot back, and the bow at this point is on the left side of the body. So the bow is on the opposite side of the foot that's forward. You're going to start with your hands positioned at about 25 and 50. So as we did the strike. And what's going to happen is you're going to bring the tip up and back. As you do so, this hand that I'm wiggling the fingers of is going to slide toward the other, so that both of your hands are pretty close to the middle of the bow. Then you're going to bring it down so that that tip comes back forward again. Now here's the tricky part. The tip goes to the other side of the body for this. And then as it starts coming around, I don't know if you can notice this hand that I'm wiggling the fingers of again, is sliding back into that 25% position, because the final bit is a strike. So when you speed it up just a little bit, you get something that looks like that. Now, ideally, you've got a connection so that you're able to make each of these moments where a bow tip is coming forward work for you as a strike or a block. That may take a while to do. Certainly, you want to make sure that you get a lot of power off that final one and this initial block as well. And then, of course, you can switch to the other side. Same idea. Comes together, stays pretty close, comes apart, strike. so. Good. So those are some of the real basic movements that are great to practice. Do a couple of repetitions if you can each time that you pick up your bow. Those are wonderful. The final thing that I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the bow kata, the first bow kata. I'll go through it once in slow motion, and then I'll try to go once in full speed. So just try to follow along. And the thing to remember with the bow kata, the first helpful piece of advice I have is that there's a whole first section where your hands actually don't flip. The bow may move in relation to your body, but the hands actually don't flip. They just adjust the bow in relation to your body. So that's super handy to know. The other thing to remember is to be really clear with yourself which moves are Zenkutsu moves and which moves are Neko Ashidachi moves. There are a couple of times in this kata where you are going from here to here, so from cat stance to Zenkutsu, or vice versa. And it's important to not do the sort of in-between, kind of like both legs bent kind of squat, which is an easy move to do if you're trying to move quickly and take a shortcut. Resist the temptation to take that shortcut. So here is the first bow kata in the slow motion. Adjust that to show a little bit more of my footwork. Try to do that one more time at full speed. Arigato. So, please feel free to practice a bow, feel free to reach out if you have questions, and I hope you have a lovely day. Thanks.